He came to you forever was not a rich investor, not a government official, but a poor market girl from Ibadan with dusty slippers and a fearless voice. What started as business would soon become a love story nobody expected. In the quiet outskirts of Ibadan, where red dust clung stubbornly to slippers and the smell of roasted corn mixed with the freshness of early morning rain, lived a young woman named Owanikoko Oluwakemi, simply called Kemi. To strangers, she looked like just another ordinary Nigerian girl trying to survive hardship. But to those who knew her story, Kemi was proof that suffering could either destroy a person or build them into something unshakable. Her life changed at the age of 8. Her father died suddenly. One moment, he was laughing at the dinner table, promising her a new school bag, and the next, he was gone. Silence replaced joy. Debt replaced comfort. And hunger does not respect grief. Her mother, Madame Bose, had no luxury to mourn for long. She tied her wrapper tighter, wiped her tears, and stepped fully into survival. She became everything at once: mother, father, provider, protector. She sold farm produce, gari, beans, yam flour, palm oil, dried pepper, maize, anything the market could turn into profit. Some mornings she left before sunrise to villages to buy directly from farmers. Some evenings she returned home exhausted, with cracked hands and tired eyes. And Kemi watched everything. During school holidays, while other girls played under mango trees, Kemi followed her mother to the market. She learned how to calculate profit before she learned business formulas in school. She learned negotiation before she learned economics. She learned survival before she learned comfort. Her mother always told her, "Never sell with desperation. People can smell desperation. Sell with confidence." And one sentence stayed with her forever: "Trust God first, then verify humans." School was another battle. Their secondary school had broken chairs, cracked walls, and teachers who disappeared more than they taught. But Kemi refused to quit. She studied under kerosene lamps when electricity vanished for weeks. She borrowed textbooks. She sold snacks during break time. She endured classmates mocking her faded uniforms and old sandals. But every time she wanted to give up, she remembered her mother's rough hands. She would not waste that sacrifice. Against every odd, she gained admission into university. That day, Madame Bose cried openly in the compound, thanking God while neighbors celebrated. Kemi studied business administration, not because it sounded fancy, but because business was already the language of her life. After graduation and NYSC, she returned to Ibadan, sharper, wiser, and quietly ambitious. She no longer wanted survival. She wanted structure. She wanted systems. She wanted something bigger. That same week, another life was arriving from thousands of miles away. His name was Park Min-jun, a respected South Korean businessman. Precise, disciplined, dangerously observant. He was known for calculated decisions, not emotional risks. But Nigeria had forced him to take one. He had studied agricultural trade across West Africa and discovered one truth: Nigeria was not just a market. It was a sleeping giant. Cassava, palm oil, cocoa, dried pepper. Opportunity was everywhere. But one thing was missing: trust. He could bring capital. He could build systems. But he needed someone local, someone smart, someone honest. And trust, he had learned, was expensive. Against advice, he chose not to send delegates. He came himself. He wanted to see the truth. His first week in Nigeria was frustrating. Everywhere he turned, people sold polished lies. Fake consultants. Exaggerated promises. Dishonest middlemen. Everyone smiled too much. No one told the truth. Until one afternoon, tired after another useless meeting, someone casually mentioned a modest produce distribution center. It wasn't impressive. Just an old building with sacks neatly arranged and workers moving with unusual discipline. But something about the order caught his attention. Inside, standing with a ledger in hand, was a young woman. No expensive jewelry, no designer confidence. Just a simple blouse, tired sandals, and eyes that noticed everything. A supplier was trying to manipulate figures. She looked at him calmly and said, "That number is wrong." The man laughed nervously. "Madam, maybe you made mistake." She turned the ledger toward him. "No, you assumed I wouldn't check." Silence. Park stood there watching. For the first time since arriving in Nigeria, he felt relief. Maybe he had finally found the right person. The woman looked up and noticed him. "Yes, can I help you?" Her English was clear, respectful, but never submissive. He stepped forward. "My name is Park Min-jun," he said carefully. "I think I need your help." Kemi stared at him. She had no idea that this strange Korean man standing before her would change the direction of her life forever. And neither did he. She thought he was just another foreign investor asking questions. Just another man who would come, make promises, and disappear like the rest. But there was something different about Park Min-jun. He did not speak too much. He observed. He listened. And somehow, he noticed things others ignored. As Kemi stood there, staring at this quiet Korean billionaire asking for her help, she felt something strange, something she could not explain. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it was enough to make her stay. Enough to make her listen. Enough to unknowingly open the door to a future that would change everything. Because what Kemi did not know was this. Park Min-jun was not just looking for business. He was carrying a secret problem. A problem involving millions. A problem involving betrayal. And very soon, that problem would pull Kemi into a dangerous game of trust, money, family betrayal, and love. Because the people smiling around her were not all on her side. And one of them, someone she called family, was already planning to destroy everything. But before the betrayal, before the heartbreak, before love found its voice, Park would say something to her that she would never forget. 3 simple words. "I trust you." And that was where everything truly began. At first, it was only business. She was helping a foreign investor survive Nigeria. But somewhere between market visits, silent glances, and one unforgettable paper bag of hot akara, business became dangerous because feelings had entered the room. Then came betrayal, broken trust, and a confession that changed everything forever. Kemi introduced herself politely. "My name is Owonikoko Oluwakemi. People call me Kemi." Park repeated it slowly. "K-me." She smiled. Close enough. That small moment broke the tension between them. He explained his plans: agricultural trade, export systems, warehouse structures, and supply chain problems. Most investors asked lazy questions. He asked dangerous ones, the kind that exposed truth. When he finished, Kemi folded her arms. "And why should I help you?" He paused, then answered honestly. "Because you look like someone who says the truth even when it costs you." The words landed heavily. People had called her stubborn, too proud, difficult, but rarely truthful, like it was something valuable. She replied quietly, "Truth is expensive in Nigeria." Park gave the smallest smile. In Korea, too. That was the beginning. Over the following weeks, Kemi helped him far more than she planned. She introduced him to reliable farmers, warned him about dishonest middlemen, explained why profitable deals on paper often failed in real life. She took him through crowded markets where traders shouted like it was a sport. She showed him warehouses where poor storage destroyed millions. She translated conversations, negotiated deals, and many times she saved him from being cheated simply by standing beside him. Slowly, something shifted. At home, Madame Bose noticed. One evening, while Kemi arranged dried pepper samples, her mother casually asked, "This Korean man, does he have no family in his country?" Kemi frowned. "Mommy, I'm only asking. He came for business." Madame Bose smiled knowingly. "Business has started many marriages." Kemi nearly dropped the pepper. "Mommy." But deep inside, the thought unsettled her, because something had changed. Park was not loud. He did not flatter. He did not chase attention, but he listened. He remembered details. He noticed silence. One day, during a long field visit, Kemi casually mentioned missing the hot akara from a roadside woman near her old secondary school. She forgot about it. 3 days later, after a stressful meeting, Park handed her a small paper bag. Inside, hot akara, still warm. She stared. "How did you even—" He looked slightly embarrassed. "I asked too many people." She laughed so hard even he smiled. That was when fear entered. Because affection is dangerous when it arrives softly. But nothing about them was simple. There was language. Sometimes emotions were harder to translate than business terms. Sometimes silence created more misunderstanding than bad grammar. Sometimes she mistook his reserved nature for indifference. Sometimes he mistook her independence for emotional distance. Then there was society. People noticed. Neighbors whispered. Friends joked. "Madam International, soon you'll be speaking Korean. Be careful with foreign men, they come and go." She laughed outside. But inside, doubts grew roots. What exactly was this? Business? Friendship? Something more dangerous? One evening after a successful meeting, they sat outside a small restaurant under yellow lights. For once, they were not discussing business. Park looked thoughtful. "In Korea," he said slowly, "my father believed business first, always first. Feelings after success." Kemi stirred her drink. "And do you believe that?" He was quiet. Then he answered honestly. "I thought I did." She looked at him differently then. Not as the investor, not as the billionaire, but as a man carrying expectations he did not fully believe in. She wanted to ask more, but her phone rang. It was home. Her mother's voice came sharp with urgency. "Kemi, come quickly. Now." Her chest tightened. What happened? But the line cut. She stood immediately. Park stood too. "What is wrong?" "I don't know." The journey home felt endless. When she arrived, neighbors were gathered outside. Her mother sat inside, shaken but alive. Relief nearly made her collapse. But then came the real problem. A trusted supplier had disappeared with a large payment. Money they could not afford to lose. Money tied to a major produce contract. Her mother whispered, "I trusted him." That night, Kemi understood something terrifying. Love and business shared one brutal rule. The wrong trust could destroy everything. The next morning, Park arrived. Without speeches, without pity, he sat with them and studied the transaction details. By evening, his expression had changed. "This was planned," he said. Kemi frowned. "What do you mean?" He placed the papers on the table. "I think someone close to you helped him." Silence. Rain began to fall heavily outside. Kemi's mind searched through names. Suppliers. Transporters. Old family friends. But one face kept returning. Uncle Tayo. Not by blood, but by family title. He had known her father, helped them during hard times, entered their home without knocking. And recently, he had asked too many questions. How much did that Korean investor bring? Are you sure he is serious? Be careful people don't use you. At the time, it sounded like concern. Now, it sounded like surveillance. The next morning, Kemi visited him, pretending everything was normal. She watched his body language. His laughter was too quick, his eye contact too brief. When she mentioned the missing money, his reaction came too late. That was enough. But suspicion was not proof. Park advised patience. If you confront without proof, he will disappear before truth arrives. She hated patience, but listened. They investigated quietly. Park traced transactions. Kemi reviewed supplier records. Finally, a transport worker confessed. Uncle Tayo had introduced the fake supplier. He had planned everything. The betrayal hurt because it was familiar. Her mother said quietly, "Sometimes strangers protect you better than family." That sentence hurt more than shouting. When confronted, Uncle Tayo exploded. "I did it for survival," he shouted. This foreign man came, and suddenly everyone praises Kemi like she built herself alone. "I was there before all of this." Madame Bose stood tall. "And because of that, you chose to steal from a widow?" Silence. He had no answer. Some betrayals do not need revenge. Exposure is enough. He left. The money was not fully recovered, but enough was saved. Business survived. And strangely, pain made truth easier. One evening, after everything settled, Kemi and Park stood outside the warehouse watching workers load produce for a major new contract. The sunset stretched across Ibadan. For once, the future did not feel like a threat. "It almost failed," Kemi said. Park nodded. "Most good things do." She turned to him. "Why did you stay?" He looked at her like he had waited for that question. "In business, people leave when profit becomes uncertain," he said. "But I stayed because somewhere this stopped being only business." Her heartbeat betrayed her. He stepped closer. "In Korea, I was taught to choose safety, logic, distance. But here," he smiled faintly. "You are not safe, Kemi. You ask difficult questions. You challenge everything. You make peace impossible." She laughed softly. "That sounds like an insult." "It is a confession." Silence. Then finally, "I love you." No dramatic music. No perfect movie timing. Just truth. Standing there like something sacred, Kemi felt tears rise. Because love after struggle feels different. It is not fantasy. It is earned. She thought of her father, her mother's sacrifices, the dusty roads, the kerosene lamps, the market noise, the betrayal, the fear. And somehow, here they were. She smiled through tears. "You took too long." For the first time since she had known him, Park laughed without restraint. Months later, their business expanded. Farmers benefited. Fairer systems were built. Madame Bose became respected. Kemi stepped fully into leadership. And Park? He no longer felt like a visitor. Ibadan had become part of him. Their wedding was unforgettable. A beautiful blend of Yoruba warmth and Korean elegance. Talking drums met soft Korean traditions. Families practiced awkward greetings. Food disappeared faster than expected. And as Kemi stood beside the man who once walked into her warehouse saying, "I think I need your help," she realized destiny rarely arrives loudly. Sometimes, it simply walks in quietly and changes everything. So tell us, what touched you most? The Akata moment, Uncle Tayo's betrayal, or Park's quiet confession of love? Drop your answer in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes the greatest harvest comes from the hardest soil, and the next beautiful story might be yours.